Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
And tonight we got the original Chaddilac. What's going on, man?
What's happening?
I was just living a dream, man. So, so basically, man, like excited to have you on, and we checked out some of your stuff, and seems like you got a lot going on. So we'll get to talking about it.
Yeah.
What originally
got
got
a lot
you
going on?
So what originally got you into this car obsession, man?
When I was born, my dad had a 39 Chevy, and my dad also liked to hunt. Me and my brother, we were around stuff growing up, and he ended up going on the way of the hunting side, and I took the car stuff over. So that's how it all started for me. And I, like everybody else, I drew them as a kid and played with Hot Wheels and all that. Not one Hot Wheel, but multiple Hot Wheels. So that's what has fed the passion.
Yeah, that having a lot of Hot Wheels as a kid has not led us into adulthood with only one car. So
yeah, exactly.
So speaking of cars, what's the car that got away?
I still have all of them. I haven't sold any of them that I wanted to keep. I guess there was probably one that I ended up letting go of. That was a 35 Ford two-door slant back. It had 42,000 original miles. I had traded a buddy of mine my 60 F100 for it, and it was really a nice car. No patch panels. It had never been any body work on it or anything like that, and I just couldn't bear to cut it up and lower it and change stuff around. It still had the mechanical brakes. Everything worked great on it. And I sold it to a guy, and he asked me, what would you do to it? And I said, I would probably just lower it a little bit, and that's it. And he bought it from me, took it home. Next thing I know, he pulled the chassis and motor out from underneath it, bought another chassis, had it painted, put an LS motor in it. And I was like, oh, man. So that was probably the one I really regret letting go of.
Well, you can't keep them all, and unfortunately, I'm realizing that.
Yeah, I'm running out of room. My shop is full of car stuff, so I'm gonna keep adding to it.
Do you build for other people, or is it mainly just your stuff and then everything else you got going on?
Right now, I have one customer, and he's probably my first and last. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a great customer, but I like working on my own stuff. I just like being able to come to the shop and do whatever I want to do on my own stuff, on my own time, on my own schedule, and not have anybody sending me text messages or emails asking me, how's it coming or what's it looking like, so that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's hard dealing on both ends of that spectrum when you allow someone to do something for you and you want to check up, but you also don't want to try to babysit them. And then,
right.
And then letting your, you also want your creativity to be in it, but it's kind of hard when someone else has a vision for it.
Yeah, well, and he's really good about letting me just do whatever I want on the vehicle. But bottom line is, I've worked by myself and for myself for so long that I don't want anybody else around. If that makes sense.
Completely get it.
Yeah.
So unlimited budget, what you building?
Oh man, probably a 33 Ford Roadster. That would be that's my unicorn right now. So I don't know that I'll ever get it, but I keep working my way towards it, and I might be able to get one somehow.
I think that's the first 30s car that's been on that. Usually, big boat Cadillac, we've had Pro Touring cars, we've had 60 stuff, but I think you're the first. Well, other than we had Zach Parks on, and obviously his is 30 stuff too. But
oh yeah,
so
yeah, Zach's into 30 stuff as well.
Yes, and everything's got to be chopped. He sends me scissors every time I post the Model A. He sends me scissors icons. But
time to cut the hair, huh?
I got to get the car done first.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So I'm putting the front frame rails back on it, hopefully this weekend.
Oh, good. Good deal.
So air ride front and rear and all hidden. So all the air ride is
Oh,
hidden on it.
nice. That's cool.
I seen you got y'all put on some car shows. So tell us about what car shows you put on and promote them, man.
Yep. Me and my buddy Mike Hollowell, he's Hollowell Motor Co. on Instagram. I'm Chaddilac Designs on Instagram, and we run the Tulsa Swap Meet. We took it over about 3 years ago from the early V8 club. We had joined the club, and at the time they were coming off of COVID, and they're all older club members, and they decided that they just couldn't do it anymore. And we kind of looked at each other and went, "This is the reason why we're here." So, so we talked to the president. He was happy about it. They had a board meeting. They totally just handed it right over to us. So me and Mike started. We knew we had to keep it going. If it was gonna be gone for one more year, it was never gonna come back. And we were coming up on the 50th anniversary, which was this year. So we knew we had to keep it going. So we took it over, and they were really impressed with the way we did it and we handled it. And they came out and helped us. They helped us every step of the way, which was great. And so we've had 3 good years, and everybody's been happy about it. So that's been really gratifying. The other one we do is the pre-war pile up, and this year was the 3rd year for that. And it is all pre 1945 cars, pre 54 drivetrain or engine and transmission, that kind of stuff. So it's all early stuff. And we've done 3 years now on that one, and it's growing pretty good. We're at about probably 35, 40 cars, which we kind of want to keep it small. We don't want to get it too big. It just becomes kind of cumbersome for two guys to do. I mean, it's a lot already to do, for two people. So we have some good help. We have some really good friends that come out and they volunteer and help us a lot with it. So that works out really good. But so far the following has been pretty good on the pile up, and we have a lot of people from Texas. We have some people from Missouri and Kansas, and we've had a couple from like Connecticut, Florida. So we've had some long haulers too, which is kind of cool. So we really enjoy putting that show on.
Well, one of our cars fits that. Well, no.
Yeah.
Could it be a small block that was made after 54 but has pre-54 stuff on it?
Nope.
Still conventional.
We have changed our rules are pretty similar to the Race of Gentlemen, if you know about that one. Yeah. It's all theirs is all pre-34, and they let some of the stuff slide. They have some of the overhead valve V8s. We're trying to limit that because, like any state in the country, you can go to a car show every weekend in the summertime and see the Mustang Club, the Charger Club, the Corvette Club, and all those guys. And that's not what we want to do. We want to put together a car show that is all about the cars that we like. So that's what we're trying, and we're trying to stick to those guidelines.
Oh, I get it. I was just trying to fudge the rule, man. Just hold your thumb over the motor. It's got 3 deuces on it.
If you have a hood on it, that'd be all right. Just keep the hood closed.
There ain't no room for hoods. I'm anti-hood. So, yeah, we're in the process of figuring out what it takes to put a car show on. We're putting one together January 4th at Don Garlett's Drag Race Museum. And
oh, cool. Okay.
So I was like, oh, it's easy. You call somebody up, you say, hey, can I have a car show there? And they're like, yeah. And then you have a car show. Cause we do.
And then what?
And, fortunately I've been around cars forever. So it kind of like, I know what I want out of it. We didn't want to do like a trophy show. So like no trophy hunters. Very minimal awards. Car clubs that come can make a trophy. We're going to give a trophy out. My mom's giving a Mom of the Podcast award.
Oh, that's cool.
And then all of our sponsors are building trophies if they're coming, and then also Hometown Hot Rodder podcast out of Texas is coming. They helped us get started, so whenever we decided to do a show, he was like, "I'll be there." And I'm like, "Well, you got to be in a hot rod." And he's like, "I'll probably be in my Lexus." And I'm like, "Well, that's."
Oh man.
Well, I get it. He's coming from, like you said, he's coming from Texas in January, so he's got a couple states of snow before he gets here. And I'm like,
yeah.
But so that was a wake up experience when we started, and I'm like, what do you mean I can't have a car show? You'd call somebody and be like, "Hey, I want to have a car show," and they're like, "No cars." And I'm like, "What? Like, we'll be nice. We won't do burnouts." And but everybody that one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. So they see what goes on, and then I'm like, "Well, man, we're just like old hot rod people. Like, we don't really mess up much."
One clown, man.
Yeah.
There's always one clown.
It's usually me, but but that's and that's we do a monthly hangout too, and it's kind of like, it's not about trophies. It's what we were trying to mimic is the old school Saturday, get a couple buddies together and go eat breakfast.
Yeah,
and we have like 3 little groups, and we all mingle, and then we all go sit separate at lunch, and then we all come back out and mingle. Works out pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's mostly about the people, really. The cars are the glue that bind us, really.
Definitely.
When we go all the way to the East Coast and all the way to the West Coast, and we spend a lot of time at the Trog events. We like those, and all the people we've met, we've just become friends with them. And so anytime we're on the East Coast, we see them, we hang out with them. And if we're on the West Coast and they're there, we go, it's the best. The best part is just the people. It's always the people.
I always say that this podcast has made me a lot of friends that I've never physically met.
Oh, yeah.
You talk to people, and it's like, I'm hoping that some of them come to our show, so it's like I can actually shake your hand, because parts or advice or stories or it's it's awesome to see, because I mean, Florida has, or used to have, a really good hot rod community, but it's kind of trickled down, and Texas is killing everyone in car community now.
Texas has got a good following of cars, man.
Yes. So, but we're trying to build
probably always will.
Yeah, and we're trying to bridge a gap, because we are on the little bit of a younger side, especially for the cars that we mess with. So I'm just hoping to hang out with older guys that their kids don't know anything about cars, so I can end up with some of their cool parts when they.
You're there for the benefits, huh?
No, the knowledge. I mean, really, because the knowledge of being around people. A good, for instance, is the 54 had a problem, and I couldn't find a nut. It's a weird nut on the lower control arm. And I just said something on a podcast. I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for this nut and I can't find it." And guy called me. He's like, "Hey man, I take all that crap out from underneath every 50s car I ever have." He goes, "But I got like 3 or 4 of them behind the garage. Let me go see if one of those bolts are good." And I'm like, "All right, what's your address?" He sent it to me. I'm like, "What do I owe you?" "Nothing." I'm like, "Okie dokie." When I was doing the Model A, I'm like, "Hey, I need a Mopar box so I can run cow steering." "Oh, I got one. What do you want for it?" "Well, I'm going to charge you for this one." I'm like, "Okay." And he charged me about half of what I would have paid at a local swap meet.
That's good.
And it's all about spreading knowledge and ideas. I mean, a lot of times, especially in the 30s stuff, it doesn't go back the way, unless you put it back exactly stock, like a Trog build or something like that. There's going to be workarounds. And even on some of those, you got workarounds, because, it's something broke and now you can't find that part. So
or you're running juice brakes, not mechanical brakes, so you have to make those work.
Yes, I actually have a set of brake pads and everything for a set of juice brakes.
Oh, do you?
Yep, because I was gonna run them on my Model A, and everyone was like, "Well, you're I put a 4th gen Camaro rear end in it to get it wide enough to go around the body. And they're like, you're going to run disc brakes on the back? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you might as well run disc brakes in the front. And I'm like, no, I'm going to run juice. And then looking around, I'm like, no, I'll just order disc brakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because by the time I sourced everything out, it was going to be 3 times as expensive and half the stopping power.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
So what are you currently working on, man?
Just finishing up a 34 Ford panel truck, which we took it out to the East Coast for Trog, Old North State. We also took it to Carlisle swap meet, Hershey swap meet, and then I busted hump and got back to Oklahoma and made it to the Rock, to the gathering at the Rock in Bartlesville. So that one is one that I was out on the West Coast for the Grand National Roadster Show, and we were visiting the Kennedy brothers out there, and they had a little open house, and they said, you can go anywhere you want, look around, everything's for sale. So I'm kind of digging around, go walking in this semi truck trailer, and there's a 34 Ford panel truck, and it's all in pieces, just stacked like cordwood down through there. And I kind of looked at it and did the old laundry list of all the pieces that were there, and I thought, I think he's got everything. So I ended up making a deal with Jay on that, and I ended up I paid it out over a couple months. I had some cash on me, and then that was in January, and then in June, right after the pile up, my buddy Mike came over on Sunday after the car show. We spent 2.5 days building a chassis with the motor and transmission, front end and rear end in it. Threw that on the trailer and hauled it all the way out to California for the Father's Day show, or the LA Roadster Show. And then Jay and Joe both, they let us use their yard, their tools and everything to put the panel truck together on the chassis. Awesome. And we hauled it home in one piece in about a week. So
that's so cool.
It worked out pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a blast.
That's what we were just talking about. You get friends from all over, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're great guys. They were real good, and they had all kinds of little fixes and stuff like that they helped me out with. So they had all the parts except for a headlight bar. My buddy Justin Boss, he had the headlight bar, so that was the only piece I needed. Awesome. So that worked out pretty good.
Yeah, that's a road trip too. Like that's quite a bit of chugging along to get there.
Oh yeah, it's a long ways.
Yeah, the gentleman that I originally bought my 32 pickup from, he had his Roadster at Trog this year.
Oh really?
Ryan.
What's his name?
Ryan Gilmore.
I'm good buddies with Ryan Gilmore.
Yeah, so I was the one that broke his heart when I bought that 32 because I said I was going to turn it into a rat rod.
Oh yeah.
Then I was like, well, it's not really a rat rod. It was going to be a bare metal truck, and
oh yeah,
I wasn't going to purposely weld it crappily and do spider webs and the rubber rat and all that stuff. That's one word that has kind of gotten. It
has morphed.
There's 80 different meanings to it, and
yeah.
Because it's like I wouldn't like. Yes, I agree that some of those rat rods, I'm like, but I'm not going to purposely make it rough. Which I don't have to worry about that because all our cars are rough. Like I don't have to force them to be that way. Her 54 is stock paint, original paint. Still has the original motor. It does have an S10 5-speed and an S10 rear end, so it'll actually get out of its own way. But
that's okay, though. And that's good upgrades.
But, I mean, it's got rust, and it may have a zip tie holding it in time, but it runs. Yeah. And the reason we figured out it had a zip tie was because we were getting ready to go somewhere, and I'm like, man, this has been running kind of crappy lately. And it wouldn't start. And I was like, And I reached down and I heard a zip tie unlock, and I went, what? Turn a distributor, and I'm like, well, that's not supposed to turn. So I tightened a zip tie back on it again, and I'm like, well, it's tight and it runs good now, so we're good. We'll run it till it breaks again. Just keep a zip tie in the glove box. that's kind of been the back burner
Awesome.
car anyway. So while the Model A is getting
Yeah.
built, that kind of doesn't get any love. So she has plans for it after, or I have plans for it after.
Oh yeah.
Make it a little
What, air
easier.
ride?
It's probably gonna end up on air. Uh,
V8?
yes.
Yeah. Yep.
With an
It's
automatic.
nice.
So
Yeah,
she,
it's nice when you have a nice V8 that you can, cruise in.
yeah. So she can drive the 5 speed, but she's not 100% confident in it, and it's just too many variables. I'm like, it's not any bigger than your car. It's definitely not bigger than my truck. You drive both of those fine, but it just feels.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, we'll make it comfortable for you, and who knows, maybe I find somebody that needs to get rid of a vintage air system, and you can have nice AC, and I'll be in the Model A with no windows. You know.
There you go. You got to, if you're building one for your wife, you got to make it where she feels comfortable in it.
Yes.
You want good steering, you want good brakes,
Yes.
and you want it to be able to get out of the way.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with that,
But that car, I mean, it's knock on wood. That car is way more reliable than it appears. Like we hauled butt off 3.5 hours to Jacksonville. I was matter of fact, I needed a little gentle nudge. I was like, yeah, we're not going. I've never went that far. I don't feel confident in it. And
That's how you find out.
well, one of my buddies goes, "What are you scared of?" And I just like paused, and I'm like, "What am I scared of?" Like, it's made it to Ryan's house. That's an hour and a half. Like, what? What am I scared of? And I was like, so I texted him back. I was like, I guess nothing. And he goes, well, you're eventually going to have to drive it, so you might as well do it now. And I'm like, what time are we leaving? Like, let's go. So we got to follow.
Way to find out, man.
We got to follow. They have a little, like a 60s Scotty Sportsman camper that she.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
That she pulls with her 55. So we followed it up. I'm like, that's all right. So at least now if I break down, I have somebody else to sit on the side of the road with, not just me and Ashley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And also, the stories. I mean, and Ashley got to bring home her first top 10. So
that's cool.
So, and it's really not about the awards, but it was kind of like we made a bunch of memories. We got asked at the hotel, like, you drove that here? And I was like, yes. Like, oh, you going?
Most people don't get that.
You going home? And I'm like, nope. No, I'm going to a car show tomorrow. You drove that here? Yep. And I'm gonna drive it home tomorrow.
Yep. What do people do in 54? They drove their cars. They drove them all over.
Yep.
They drove them from the East Coast to the West Coast. The same stinking car with a 235 or 216 engine.
Yep.
That's what they did.
Yep. So those are the stories. I mean, or pulling up at a gas station, a little kid's never seen one.
Oh yeah.
Or
it's a car show every time you drive one.
And especially
everybody, it's just focused on you,
And especially like 50s cars, because everyone identifies with them. So it's like my grandpa had one, or I learned how to drive one, or my dad used to let me drive it around the property, that. So we get those stories, and 30 cars was my granddad had them, but you still get the what is that, or that looks different.
Yeah.
So cool. What's one road trip story? You told us about the panel truck, but what's one road trip story that you would be like, this is what the car hobby's all about?
Well, our East Coast trip, we've been trying to do it for the last 3 years, I think. We take off and go. Old North State is, I think, the third weekend of September. So, and it's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So we go hit that, and then from there we go to to Carlisle Swap Meet, which is the same week as Trog, but we go hit Carlisle Swap Meet on Wednesday, Trog on Thursday and Friday for the swap meet, and then on Saturday and Sunday they have the races, and then from there we go over to Hershey and hit the Hershey Swap Meet for 3 days. And then it's back home after that. So it's about 2.5 weeks, but it is the best because everybody that goes to that stuff, they go to all those events too.
Hmm.
So it's like everybody just kind of caravans around to the all the same places. So you get to hang out with your buddies for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I know Ryan was the North State. He got approved there, and
Yeah,
then he got approved for
yeah,
Trog, and then I think he was headed to Gathering at the Rock.
he was. Yeah,
So yeah, I
he
was.
he went with us to Hershey
Oh,
and had to bail. Yeah,
that's another guy that has a plethora of knowledge and plethora of parts. So that was I bought the 32 from him and I put it on a trailer and he's like, "What's the plan?" And I'm like, "It's gonna be a rat rod, man. I'm sorry, but." He's like, "No," and I'm like, "Yeah, like." And then I got to thinking about it. I bought some brake backing plates from him, and I was like, "Man, it's really not like it's what do you call a rat rod?" And he's like, "Crappy welds and spiders," and I was like, "No, no,
all
no."
blades and
Like, no, it's
yeah,
just going to be bare metal and it's going to be like an unfinished car. And he was like, well, that's traditional. And I was like, okay, well, then it's traditional. So,
yeah. You know, the rat rod term was coined by Gray Baskerville. Um, he wrote articles for Hot Rod magazine, and back in the mid to late '90s, he came coined that term for hot rods that were unfinished or in primer, and it stuck. Everybody loved rat rods at that time. And then as it evolved,
yeah,
more people lean towards let's see if we can, a wow factor. Let's see
yeah.
what we can do, how stupid we can make it to, to get more people to look at it. And it just went full spectrum on that. And that's why the whole term rat rod is just, it's kind of degrading now.
But for people outside of the car world, they don't know. They just see it
They have
unpainted,
no clue.
unfinished. They call it a rat
Yep.
rod. They're not meaning anything by
Yep.
it. And
No,
even
absolutely
and
not.
even
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. Like I'll look at something and
Yeah.
be like, "Oh yeah, that's a really good rat rod." But you kind of got to like test the waters because the guy
Yep.
might punch you thinking you're trying to talk crap. And I'm like, no, man, it's a really cool car.
Yeah. We had to educate a couple of the ladies in our early V8 club. Um, Mike had a 31 Deluxe Phaeton two-door, and it was just kind of rough, and we took it to Trog, and then I had a 34 Ford Coupe that was an old round-around car here in my town, and we got them running and took them up there, and the ladies in the club, they just wanted to call it rat rods, and we're like, no, 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 it's not rat rod. It's like a Survivor traditional hot rod. It's all it is. And they're like, well, what's that mean? I thought it was a rat rod. And they're like, no, 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 it's not a rat rod. Just forget that term, please.
But I mean, it is. And I'm guilty. Like I said, I'm guilty of it. Like, oh, it's a really cool rat rod, and it's just unfinished or unpainted,
Yeah,
unshiny.
yeah.
Because like I don't
Just a
like,
work in progress, basically.
yeah.
You
Or that
know,
might be the end result. I mean,
could be. Yeah.
I love Ryan's coupe. I would leave it exactly like it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
So, other than the pre-war, what is a show that you try to make every year? I guess beside all those
Uh,
other ones.
we try to make the Trog, the Race of Gentlemen. Mel puts that on. He does a really good job on those. They have a really good following, and the East Coast Trog is completely different than the West Coast Trog. Completely different cars. Some guys will haul them all the way across the United States to show up at one, but it's just like it's two different groups of guys at each one. So I'm not sure if he's going to be doing any more out in California. He's done. Let's see, he did Pismo Beach. He did another one out there. Can't remember what the name of the town was. I didn't go to it, but he did two at Flaybob Airport, which was in Riverside, California. And we went to both of those, and we really loved it. Just the backdrop of the mountains and the palm
Hmm.
trees, and there was vintage biplanes flying around, in the sky. It was really cool. And then you have all the cool cars, all the hot rods, burning rubber and running laps. So, um, but that one's completely different than the East Coast. The East Coast on the beach is it's just all those cars out there seem to be the higher percentage of them are a little rougher, almost like I hate to say rat rod, but almost in kind of that range, just
Yeah.
more little surface rust, not finished, a little rougher looking, and then but you still have three or four that are just like immaculate. And then you have a guy like Rob Ida. I don't know if you know who Rob Ida is. He's a like a coach builder in the Northeast area. He brings like a 50s Jag out there that's got a bubble top on it and races it down the track, and it looks exactly like a speed racer going. So you have kind of a pretty good range of cars, but both of them are still there's two separate shows, even though they're put on by the same person, but they're done really well.
Well, even car shows themselves, not just Trog, but East Coast car styling versus West Coast car
Oh,
styling
yeah,
versus Florida car
completely
styling.
different.
Like
Yeah,
they all have their own
it,
little unique flavor, and
sure.
it's cool to see that. But
Yeah.
I heard the weather's really good in the state of Florida in January. It's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so January 4th. I mean, feel free to come
Oh,
down.
yeah. Where's it going to be at? The Don Garlits?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
So
Where's that at? Is that near
Bellevue,
Ocala?
yeah, one exit south of
Okay.
Ocala.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that sounds good. I think Ryan was telling me about that and was trying to get me to come down there.
now there you go, man.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping he'll let me use one of his glamping cabins or something at his RV park.
Oh, that was when we followed Andrew and Knuckles up with the camper. 54 don't have door locks. I couldn't get the car
Yeah.
in front of so we're a little sketchy side of town. So like I'm constantly going to check to make sure the car's there. And I'm building RVs like, oh, well, the Model A is 4 foot tall. So
Yeah.
if I get a vintage camper and I chop the top to make it like sort of slick back, like I'm going on a deep dive of vintage campers because that was the coolest thing
That's funny.
rolling up there with them. And
Oh, yeah.
they actually got to put the camper in the show. So we had
Oh, wow.
a cool
That's
little
cool.
place to AC because it's at a campground. So it's kind of like the
Yeah.
reliability run that Ryan does.
Yeah.
So then, she brings the camper over, plugs it into power. So we got AC and a cooler, and
Oh, man, that's perfect.
I'm like, man, that's awesome. And
Yeah, that's cool.
she won best of show with it. So,
Wow.
but
That's too cool.
yeah, it's a good time, and I was very happy that we decided to go.
Yeah.
That was
One
put
of
on
the
by
things
Saw Customs. So,
sorry.
you're good.
Oh, what Saw Customs?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard of them.
It's a husband and wife out of Jacksonville. She's a
Oh, okay.
pinup, and then she does photography. And he is if you like thought about what someone that had a 50s car that was laid out would look like, the beard and the long hair, and
Oh, yeah.
that's him.
Yeah, that's him.
So,
That's funny. Huh.
what's the current favorite car?
It'd have to be the panel truck. I've been calling it the Pomona panel because that's where the Kennedy brothers are at. So on Instagram, I ear tag it, pound Pomona panel on every picture or every video. So
Yeah.
it's blast. It's like a 30s Frito-Lay truck basically. I mean, it's got the big. It looks like a truck from the doors forward, but the back is just a big, canopy. Not canopy, but a big enclosed cover with two barn doors in the back. So, and it's just a blast to drive.
Yeah, that's cool. That's the off beaten path type cars. Those are the ones that
Oh yeah,
I draw myself to.
sure. They're pretty rare because the floor was all wood and the structure's all wood, and so the metal just kind of it tacks on the outside of a wood structure, and once all that wood is gone and the termites get it, that metal just falls in on itself, and there's not really anything to work with, other than the skin. And most people don't like to mess with that. This one had somebody had already replaced one side of the wood and had built a new floor for it, and the other side was all done. So it just bolted right back together when we built it.
Yeah, I know about that whole take the wood out and everything falls apart.
Yeah, it's
Mo-
no fun.
Model A lost like 4 inches by taking the
Oh
floor
yeah,
out of it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's back square now, so
That's good. That's good.
or square enough. So
Yeah,
I'm not,
square-ish.
yeah, square adjacent. I'm not building a show
Yeah,
car, so it's just going to be a driver for us, and it's not going to be
whatever
shiny
makes you
paint.
happy, man.
It's not going to be
That's
shiny
what it's all
paint. I'm
about.
not trying to,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that build way cooler cars, but I just want to be on the road next to them. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't blame you.
that's the one thing that we try to tell people is like, just get out, drive your stuff, man. Like, if it's not
Absolutely.
exactly what you want, you can get there. Just start with something that you can afford and kind of keep chugging along until you do get what you want. You meet cool friends, you meet somebody that does really good body work or really good interior. Well, now your car's got cool interior in it.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people that you get in a friends group and everybody kind of has their own little. They're better at one thing than others. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
hey, I need help doing this. Okay, I got you. All right, well, I'll help you
Yeah.
with that, but now I need help with this over here. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, all y'all got really cool cars.
Yeah. And it's really good to network like that because if you are on a 300-mile
You,
road trip and something happens, you might have somebody close there that can help you, or a friend of a friend that's close, which is always beneficial.
yeah, we were just talking with a guy, the Hellions Car Club, and he was saying that he was headed back up to Canada, and he broke down, called a club member, and was like, "Hey, do we know anybody in Georgia?" Yeah, so and so. Okay,
Yep.
call. All right,
Yep.
they come, snagged him up, took him to the house, got his stuff running, and away they went.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
that's what this is all about. That was kind of the podcast. Like I wanted to get people together because, especially people that didn't grow up in it or stay in it long enough.
Yeah.
You don't even
Yeah.
know these people exist.
Yeah.
So if we can connect people and also connect, the younger generation that might be a little misguided in the way they build stuff, but they'll learn. They'll get on the old
Well,
stuff eventually.
if you can get them to where they like the old stuff, a lot of them are into the tuner stuff, which, there's nothing wrong with that because anybody at any point in time since the beginning of cars, somebody has had an affliction with a brand new car,
Oh yeah.
and you can't be mad at a young guy because he likes a newer car. He's still in the same hobby as you.
Well,
You just have different tastes.
and also we're all doing the same stuff. Lowrider
Absolutely.
guys, mini truck guys, old school guys. We're all doing the
hmm
same stuff. We just call it something different. Mini trucks call it body dropping. We call it channeling. They're swapping in fuel injected motors. Y'all are swapping in flatheads. I'm swapping in small blocks.
Yeah.
Actually Ryan gave me that quote was the most money you'll ever spend to go slow. Because
That's right.
I really want a flathead because it would look cool. And he was like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's like, but for the amount of money, he goes, if you know anything about a small block, he goes, build a small block. He goes, because you will spend twice as much and be not satisfied in the end.
No.
I was like,
Yeah.
you're probably right. Because I would love to tear apart a flathead just to find out the inside of it, but I know nothing about them. So, and I will freely
Yeah.
admit I know nothing.
I love them. I've got 4 or 5 flatheads. I've got 2 cars that run with flatheads in them, and I've got one flathead I'm building right now, and they are just, you cannot beat the sound of a flathead.
Yes.
It's completely different than anything else. Even the starter sounds completely different than any other starter out there.
Yes. That was the original when we picked up the Model A. I was going to drive it around with the 4-banger in it, and I was like, I'll just drive it around for a little while before I tear it apart. And it freaked me out how slow the starter turned because it's still all 6 volt and stuff. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is never going to
Yeah.
start. And if I had more patience, it probably would have. But I just ran out of
Yeah.
patience, and I'm like, nope, let's start taking the interior out. Let's get this body off. We're putting it on a chassis. Let's get going. Yep. Just and again, that was learning experiences.
Yeah.
When I took the floor out of it, I was fully expecting the body to stay together. Everything I've ever taken the floor out of, unless the floor was rotted, it kind of kept its shape, and then you could build a channeled floor. Not that. As soon as I started
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that door just moved in. How did that happen? Oh, because that was
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
even, it had full fender. It was a stock Model A when I bought it. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's pretty solid. But now that the body's flexed a couple of times, I'm like, oh, there's a panel there. Oh, those fenders
Yeah.
were hiding a lot of rust right there.
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
stuff that
That's part of learning, though.
yep. So it was,
Owning the cars and learning all that stuff.
and it's been a fun journey, and it'll be cool when it gets done. I made the mistake of trying to put a deadline on it, and
Oh, no. They'll screw you up every time.
and it would have worked out if it would have worked out, but it didn't work out. So now we're taking steps backwards to go
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
But it's all good, and it's when it gets done, it'll be the way I want it. So if I don't like something, it's my fault.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can, and it's a car. You can always redo it.
Yep.
Nothing a grinder and a welder can't fix. So
So you said you work for yourself. What is the actual company?
Chaddilac Designs. I'm a graphic designer. I've been a graphic designer for about 25 years now. So
Okay.
I went to school for that, graduated with it, moved to Dallas, lived down there for a while, and I was just so enamored with cars. Um, and a friend of mine, she said, what you have to figure out is how to monetize your lifestyle so that your lifestyle pays. And so over the years, I've kind of veered off of graphic design. And at one point, I started buying and selling car parts. I was building a 27 Model T coupe, and I realized that I could go to a swap meet and I could buy, if I needed, say, a door, I could buy 2 doors, and I was getting them cheap enough that I could keep the nice one and I could sell the one and pay for both of them. So that quickly helped me build on a really low budget, this Model T coupe. And so I started buying parts left and right, all kinds of different stuff. And I started selling them, and that was kind of my side gig at the time. I was doing graphic design during the day. I was going to swap meets on the weekend, and I was mowing lawns. I was doing all kinds of different stuff, but the car parts really kind of sucked me in, and I was making really good money off the car parts, and I was having more fun going to the swap meets. It was on the weekends, and it was like every other weekend just about for a swap meet instead of working all week for the same amount of pay. So I was like, let's just keep doing this car parts and stuff, and kept doing that, and then ended up a friend of mine took over my old graphic design position down in Dallas when I moved back home to Oklahoma, and he got in with a restaurant, and we started putting um, trucks on top of buildings down there for all these restaurants for this one chain basically. And he would say, "Hey, can you cut the front off of a truck and make the headlights work?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." And he's like, "All right, well, I need 2 of them." I'm like, "Okay." So we do that. And then he's like, "Can you build some picnic tables?" I'm like, "You got a drawing?" He's like, sends me a drawing. It's like, "Yeah, I can do that." And he's like, "Okay, we need 10 of those." So it was just like stuff like that. And then we got into doing the old truck doors with their logos on the doors, and every restaurant ended up getting a truck on the building, a door with their logo on it, a truck grill that was lit up, and then a bunch of hubcaps and a bunch of license plates. So that's how it kind of morphed more into the from the design over into more car stuff because I started buying more and more parts and stuff like that. So
Awesome. It's always good when you
Yeah,
can turn your hobby into a career. I'm still working on that.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Keep working on it. Figure it out. Because, you go to a car show or a swap meet or anything else that has to do with cars, you will remember that time that you took off and drove 300 miles. If you stayed at home and worked that day, you would never remember that day unless a meteor hits you or something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to go do that stuff. You can't think of bucket list stuff. You plan stuff out, go do it, go have fun. You
Well,
got to enjoy your life.
that was the podcast. I was like, we go to these car shows anyway, so why not have
Yep,
a reason to go other than
absolutely.
just to
And
hang
it's a
out?
write off. Yeah. Yep. You can write it all off. Every bit of it, food and all. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. And
So,
we go to these car shows. I want to talk to people, so it's afforded us the ability to go to car shows that we probably wouldn't have been able to go to. Uh, Talk to people that we definitely wouldn't have got to talk to because I mean, not everyone is as responsive to somebody that doesn't offer them value back. So
that's true. That's
if you
true.
if a normal person off the street sends somebody a message, they might just blow it off as, or you might get a short answer because they're not worth your time. But if I can get somebody
Yeah.
on here for an hour, we can hang out and talk. And Ashley hates me because normally after the podcast, I'm like, all right. And she was like, okay, well, I'm going to go let the dogs out. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll get off of here and then you can edit. And she comes back in and I look over and she's staring at me because I've been talking for an hour just bullshitting after the podcast. Because,
No, yeah.
you talk about people, stuff that can't be talked about on the podcast or business or, future
Yeah.
plans that may work out or collaborations or trying to get together with people.
Yeah.
And I've realized that a lot of the people that were not approachable really are approachable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's still weird to me when we started this podcast, the Texas podcast that helped us was like, man, the first time somebody writes you and goes, hey, man, I want to come on the podcast, and they give you a long list of stuff that they've done to deserve to talk to you on the podcast, you're going to be like, no. And I'm like, that's never going to happen. It happened. Like, real early, it happened. And I was like, I'm not going to say the name, but it's somebody very famous. And he sends me this thing, and he sends me like 4 articles and like, oh, this is my YouTube. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, dude, I know who you are. Like, I've followed you for years.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, I just want to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to you too. And it was just, or tonight I went into the gas station and somebody's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, I was at the cruise-in yesterday. And I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like,
Yeah.
I remembered them, but I don't remember but Matt. And I'm like, people know I'm bad
Yeah.
with
Oh,
names.
okay.
And I'm like, yeah, what's up,
I
man?
am
Like,
too.
like I'm horrible at
Yeah.
names.
Yeah.
Like, well, Ryan in my phone is still Ryan32 pickup with his
That's
IG
funny.
logo. So if he calls me, like it pops up his car because I've talked to him a bunch. I know his name now, but people like, oh yeah, put my number in your phone. I'm like, old parts or
Yeah. Exactly.
pilot,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like
Yeah.
and I feel bad, which Ashley pointed out, like, I think it was 2 cruise-ins ago. This group walked up to me and we're talking and we're BSing for probably 30 minutes. And they walk away and I'm like, man, those people are awesome. And Ashley's like, we met them at the Groundhog Gala. And I was like, no. And then later on, my dad was like, yeah, his son, he has a 41 Dodge pickup. And I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We get a lot of that because me and Mike put on that, the pre-war pileup and the Tulsa swap meet, and we get around so much that we meet people and we just honestly forget about them. Once you're not in front of them, you just kind of forget about people.
Well, and it used to be,
So
what do you drive? Like, oh yeah, I knew you. And like,
yeah.
oh, what'd you
Oh
drive?
yeah. Now yeah, now it's what's your Instagram handle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't remember their name, but oh yeah, man, you got that sweet, 31
Hmm.
coupe. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's how we are, man. All of us.
So if someone was trying to get into this car hobby, what would be one piece of advice that you would tell them?
Yeah. I would say go to like a cruise in like you're talking about and just hang out and look at the cars and figure out what you like and then get to know some people. That's the best way to do it. Just go up and talk to some people. 99% of the car guys are usually down to earth, good, hardworking people, and they're friendly and they're helpful, and they want to share stuff with you and they'll help you out. So that's the best thing to do is just go talk to people.
That is very true. That
Yeah, and then
is,
you can figure out, by talking to some of them, which ones you like and which ones you don't like. you
and
know.
also, and what avenue in the car hobby that you want to take.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah,
you want to be
yeah,
that guy that, has the cool car in his garage that takes it out to ice cream cruises with the wife or the kids, or the guy that wants to haul butt from Florida to Grand National Roadster Show with a bunch of buddies,
yep.
or there's a
Oh
whole.
yeah,
That's what I love about the hobby itself is there's something for everybody. If you just want the car that you can enjoy and kind of stay local, do it. If you want to go
oh
hang
yeah,
out, put your lawn chair out and get people to walk by your car and be like, yeah, man, that's a cool car, and talk about your car, only your car, you can do it. Or you
yep,
can be the busy bee and go talk to everybody and figure out why everybody likes what they like.
yeah. There's so much different car stuff happening all over the nation, and it seems like it's people are starting more and more. Uh, Um, the traditional car show or traditional cars, which is what I like, is I hate to say it, but it's kind of becoming a fad with some people,
Yes.
but it is growing, which is good because it's going to keep it going. And the 30s stuff, that's the oldest stuff. 20s and 30s stuff is the oldest cars, and to keep them going, we've got to keep a lot of people interested in them.
Yes. Oh,
That's the one good thing I can say about Rat Rod stuff too, is they brought a lot of car bodies out
yes.
that, out of fields and out of ravines and stuff that got back into the public's eye.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one good thing I would say for Rat Rod phase.
Well, and even, it also is a lower cost of entry. If
Sure.
you're not trying to put if that metal doesn't have to be perfectly straight so you could put a shiny paint job on it, or
Hmm.
it also allows the people that don't have the ability or the
Yeah.
time to block sand a car for 6 days to get it perfectly
Yeah.
straight so you could lay shiny paint on it. I mean,
Yeah.
or the guys
Yeah.
that can't really do body work too well, or
Yeah.
there's so many different avenues that it affords you, because being realistic, shiny cars are expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. They are.
And especially if you like shiny old cars, like old
Yeah.
cars,
Yeah.
they're
One of the good things about the 30s Ford stuff is I can equate it to like small block Chevy and big block Chevy. All that stuff all bolts together
yes,
and is very interchangeable. The early 30s stuff is exactly the same way. And why Ford ventured off of that, I have no idea. But all
yes,
the early 30s stuff it's really easy just to mix and match and bolt stuff together.
yes,
So when you're putting one together, you can, like if you're doing air ride on a 54 Chevy, you can lose your steam pretty quick when you come into a problem with the front arms, or the front control arms or
yes.
something. But or like the early 30s Ford stuff, it just goes right together. It's so easy. And so you don't end up losing your momentum building one. You can build one pretty quick.
Until you try to hide air springs in the
Yeah, until you do that. Yeah.
You learn why people don't do it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. I've never seen it done. I want to do it. And then it's
I
like,
love it.
now I'm like, man,
What was I thinking?
I even bought a kit. Was it Old Tin Hot Rods or Old Tin Rods sells a crossmember kit, and I'm like, perfect.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to try to build it. Like I'll just before
Yep.
I bend it up,
Weld it up.
I was like, before I bend it up, I'll trace it out. So if I ever want to do another one, I have it. I'm never doing another one again.
That's 2 times, first and last, huh?
Well, the arms didn't function. Like we couldn't figure out how to get the arms to not bind. So
Yeah.
it would hop the front end off the ground like 6 inches.
Oh wow.
Because it would bind up, and then the bag would get enough
release.
air in it, and blank. And then going down, it would like, thunk, and it's like, no.
Oh gosh.
I'm like,
Huh.
That's been through a couple, and we figured out a couple things to make it better. And shout out BP Customs, they figured out a cross member that worked way better than the arms. But so it'll all be hidden. As long as I can figure out how to get a radiator on a 14.5-inch kick up to work, we'll be good.
Yeah, a narrow one.
So I'm either going to have to go sideways or just stick it out in front and do some creative routing to get to the lower radiator hose.
Some of those guys used to run the radiators in the trunk and run the hoses all the way back to the back, and then they could put a regular grill in the front.
I was gonna do that, but then I think we're gonna do a camper, so the Model A is gonna have a hitch on it.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. You want to put a hitch, yeah.
So I got a big my Daily's a jacked up truck, so I got a plenty of drop hitch. So I think we're just gonna weld a 2.5-inch receiver on the back of the Model A, go right through the body, hide it with the license plate. We'll be good. But that was
cool.
That was one thing with that car. Like I wanted it to be different. I wanted to be able to pull up at a more traditional leaning show and leave it at ride height, and everybody go, man, that's a really cool, old school build. And then as I'm leaving, drag it on the ground a little bit for them and make them wonder how it got there.
Yeah.
At one time, I was talking to, I had a kid I went to school with, and everything he had was on air ride. He went to Arizona for a little while, and when he came back, everything's on juice. They do hydraulic stuff out there.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to him about ideas, he's like, put it on hydraulics. And I'm like, no, I'm not putting a 1929 Model A on hydraulics. And he was like, why? And I was like, well, one, it rides like garbage. And two, I'm not trying to hop a car that's 100 years old. And he's like, no, dude, park and chill. And he come up, he laid it all out. And I was like, but how are we going to do the front struts where I can't see them? He goes, they make them that look like shocks. And I was like, really? And he sent them to me. I'm like, okay, all right. And then he got busy, and I was like, I don't know nothing about hydraulics and 85 batteries and 52 pumps and switches. And I'm like, I'm just going to stick to what I know. I know air ride. I'm going to put air ride on. But
just keep it simple, man.
Yeah, so,
there's more you get gratification quicker when it's simpler, and because when you're doing all that stuff, you're having to become an engineer. And if you're not an engineer, you're going to run into a problem that's going to stump you.
Well, the one thing is he's like, well, it doesn't make sound going down, but it sounds like a transformer going up. And he sent me a clip of, it was like a pretty new Silverado, and it was on hydraulics. And the dude hit a speed bump at like 45 mile an hour, and the truck didn't move. And I was like,
oh, wow.
I was like, okay, one, how did they do that? And two, I was like, what? That doesn't even make any sense to me. And he's like, oh, it's accumulators, like a reservoir shock, and da-da-da. I'm like, oh, okay, got it. And then at the end of the video, the guy lays it down and then airs it up, and it sounded like, and I was like, oh, man, that'd be so cool. It's laid out somewhere, no one sees anything, and then all of a sudden, but
oh, yeah.
We went to Aaron.
That's funny.
All right, man. Well, we'll give some dates, and then we'll get out of here. Hit us with the dates.
Alrighty. Well, this coming weekend, yeah. October 26th, Florida Drag Strip Riot, Drag Racing Car Show at Orlando Speedworld Dragway. Next month, the 17th, we have the monthly hangout at the Cove in Inverness, Florida. So be sure to check that out. We're going to be in a new spot, kind of, but just be aware of the signage.
We're going to be halfway between where we came from and where we went last month.
Yep. And then the 23rd and 24th is Field of Dreams Car Show at Florida Classic Park in Brooksville. And then November 28th through December 1st, Turkey Rod Run. And we'll be there.
We'll be parked with Florida Rats and Rods or Asphalt Misfits.
And to start the new year off, we have our first annual show, The Hangout, January 4th at Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing. All vehicles are welcome. There will be podcast sponsor, car club picks, food vendors and merch. Raffles, there's going to be a 50-50 for the Ryland Strong Network. And you can pre-register only at hotrodhangout.com, and pre-registered vehicles will receive a gift bag with goodies and merch.
Yes, and you heard it. hotrodhangout.com is the only place to pre-register. Do not send money to the scammers that keep posting on our Facebook. They're not with us. Please don't send them money. Please. All right. Is there anyone that you'd like to shout out before we go through our sponsors?
Just the pre-war pileup is on Instagram. Pre-war pileup. Tulsa Swap Meet is Tulsa Swap Meet on the Instagram too. I'm Chaddilac Designs on Instagram, so give me a follow. And my YouTube channel is Chadlac's Hot Rods and Fabrication. So if anybody'd like to follow there, they can follow along with all the traveling and all the updates on the car stuff that I do.
And we'll definitely put that in the show links below and also tag it on all our social media. Well, till next time, go check out BP Customs on Facebook.
And don't forget to check out Throttle Addict using code word Hot Rod. You get save 15% off.
Make sure you go show Johnny Jalopy some love. Hot Rod Art, Facebook, YouTube, and JohnnyJalopy.com.
And, of course, go visit The Cove, not just the third Sunday of every month. But you can also check them out on Facebook, thecovepubandgrub.com for directions, menu, campsite, and lodging reservations.
But you definitely want to go check them out on the third Sunday.
Yes.
Shout out to Low Income Clothing and Low Income Photo. Go show them some love. Father and Son Team on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, yes. And don't forget to check out Rat Rod's Woodfire Pizza. They are one of our food vendors. Very exciting. Check them out on Facebook or ratrodswoodfirepizza.com for their menu and to book an event.
And make sure you go to hotrodhangout.com, buy some t-shirts, some tank tops, some koozies, and the flat bill hat.
Oh, yes.
All right, guys. Till next time, get out, drive your shit.
See ya.
Later.